everyone. I'd like to get started on a meeting for Comcast N-Star Hybrid Cable Project from Falmouth to Martha's Vineyard. It's a public hearing, April 25th, 2013, at the Falmouth Public Library. And I'd like to note the time is 7:30 and the date is
6:30.
6:30. Sorry, 4/25/13. And I'd like to ask my colleague here to read the hearing notice.
Hearing notice, Cape Cod Commission, Martha's Vineyard Hybrid Cable Project, April 25th, 2013. The subcommittee of the Cape Cod Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, April 25th, 2013, at 6:30 p.m. at the Falmouth Public Library, 300 Main Street, Falmouth, Massachusetts, to receive testimony on and review the project in order to report and make recommendations thereon to the full Cape Cod Commission. The project qualifies as a mandatory development of regional impact pursuant to Sections 12I and 13B of the Cape Cod Commission Act. See 716 of the Acts of 1989 as amended because it is required the preparation of an environmental impact report pursuant to the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. The DRI review has previously limited in scope to the regional policy plan issue areas of coastal resources and marine resources pursuant to Section 5 of the DRI enabling regulations. This project will be heard pursuant to Section 13A of the Cape Cod Commission Act and Sections 3 and 7 of the DRI enabling regulations. This notice is being published as required by Section 5 of the Cape Cod Commission Act. Project name, Martha's Vineyard Hybrid Cable Project. Project applicant, Comcast North Central Division and N-Star Electric Company. Project location, intersection of Mill Road and Surf Drive in Falmouth, Massachusetts. Project description, proposed installation of an approximately 4.5 mile long submarine hybrid fiber optic electric cable from Falmouth across Vineyard Sound to Martha's Vineyard to provide redundant communications and electric services. The project proposes horizontal directional drilling as the preferred method of cable installation at the Falmouth landing site. The submarine cable is proposed to be installed via cable trenching remotely operated vehicle or hydroplow.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd like you to know that this hearing is being recorded. There is a sign-in sheet somewhere in the back of the room.
On that back table, sir.
And if people wish to provide testimony, please sign in. My name is Ernie Virgilio. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm the commissioner from Mashpee. To my right is Leonard Short. He's the commissioner from Orleans. All right there, Len. And to my far left, I've got John D. Harris, our minority representative, John McCormick from Yarmouth, and Andrew Putnam from Falmouth. The purpose of the hearing is for the Cape Cod Commission Subcommittee to consider the DRI application of Comcast and N-Star under a limited scope for the proposed submarine telecommunications and electrical cable from Falmouth to Martha's Vineyard, Mass., and to take testimony on the project. The order of the hearing is going to be a presentation by co-applicants, representatives, a presentation of the staff report, commission staff, questions from the subcommittee, and public testimony. So I would like to ask the co-applicants to please provide their presentation at this time.
Good evening. Les Smith from Epsilon Associates. We're the environmental consultants on the project. And we have a PowerPoint slide that, or PowerPoint presentation I'd like to give. You may want to change your seats around so you don't get stiff neck.
We'll do that.
In front.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here. This.
No, that's for the screen to go
So I
up.
think it's in the back we have to do it.
Andrew, do you know if there's an easy way to just dim the lights right in front of the screen?
She's attempting to do so, yep.
Right here in front?
I think so.
Beautiful. As previously mentioned, this is a proposed project by Comcast and NSTAR Electric. We, Epsilon, prepared this presentation in association with Power Engineers and Sierra Environmental. Sierra Environmental is a Falmouth environmental firm we worked with on the marine data collection analysis.
Can you hear him okay for the filming, or do you want a microphone? Okay.
In terms of our agenda, I'll speak a little louder. I'm going to talk about the cable history and project need, how we selected the route. Sorry about that. Our environmental data collection and analysis, the MEPA process, that's Mass Environmental Policy Act process, our installation approach, and then Holly is going to talk about the limited DRI regulation analysis on those two issue areas of coastal resources and marine resources. There are 4 existing submarine cables shown here, 2 here, 2 here. Actually there's only 3 operational now. All of these were installed with a short horizontal directional drill at the shoreline, with the remainder of the cable lying on the seafloor. Comcast leases bandwidth from NSTAR on cable 99, right in here. That goes from Shore Street over to East Job. The other 2 cables are from Elm Road over to West Job. Our proposed route is right in the middle, and comes over to West Job. In terms of the cable history, I mentioned that there are 3 cables operational. Cable 75 failed back in 2011. It's not operational. So basically this cable is replacing the services that were provided by cable 75. I mentioned cable 99, which Comcast leases bandwidth from. NSTAR has failed 4 times in the last 15 years. Cable 91 has failed 5 times, and only cable not to have failed is 97. As I mentioned previously, Comcast wants redundant fiber so they can guarantee communication service to most of the island residents and visitors. And NSTAR wants to replace the electric services lost by the failure of cable 75. And I mentioned that the cable route is right in the middle here. What we're doing is we're avoiding these areas protected by the Ocean Management Plan. And we'll get into that a little bit in a future slide. At the Falmouth Landing, where we had a little site visit today, we're going to be having a directional drill pit right here, out by the edge of the parking lot. The entrance to the parking lot is right here, and we've actually pushed this back a little further to the west than our previous submission to you, because we, in taking a look at the lot more closely, there are stone fences that come along here, stone fences that come along here. It's really the only way of getting into the lot is a small entrance here. And to allow other vehicles into the lot, when we're doing the directional drill, the drill rig would set up here. We needed this extra space to get out around that drill rig. So we pushed a little bit over to the west. Here's what the directional drill rig looks like in cross-section. It's angling down about 25, 30 feet below the surf drive, the dune, the beach, and the near shore, out about a half a mile. We have connection over to Comcast's existing fiber, which comes up our existing telephone pole right here. And this will be underground. It will go under Mill Road. This will be trenched in back to Comcast's manhole. And NSTAR's connection from their manhole, which will be coincident with the horizontal directional drill pit, will come out across and connect into their existing service right over in front here, right in the shoulder of Surf Drive. Taking a look at wetland resource areas, coastal resource areas, because that's one of the items we're looking at today. We have a barrier beach with landward salt pond. We have dunes out in front on the landward side of Surf Drive. And we're not in either of those resource areas. We're going under the beach and under the dune. We looked at shoreline change here, and this is a compartmentalized shoreline. There's a groin here, and the shoreline change has been pretty stable shoreline. What tends to happen is when it gets washed over, this area didn't really get washed over much even in the last storms. It did down to the west of here and a little across the pedestrian walkway, but most of this dune was intact after that last storm. It, of course, is all in a FEMA floodplain, but we're not going to be impacting the floodplain at all, nor will the utility, either the NSTAR cable or the Comcast cable, be impacted by the flooding. Back to the ocean management plan. Cables are required to avoid hard complex seafloor and eelgrass. Eelgrass is shown along the shoreline. Eelgrass tends to be depth limited, so it's limited to generally about 30 feet of water depth. So there's a certain width here of eelgrass beds that we're going to go out underneath to avoid impacting those. And then we have shown in kind of gray tone here, hard complex bottom. And we selected a route that goes out through and avoids those areas based on the mapping by the state GIS mapping and Coastal Zone Management's Morris mapping. But we further have confirmed by going out and doing detailed survey that we are avoiding those resource areas. Our first reconnaissance survey was done back in May of last year, or actually May of 2011. And we did a day-long study of bathymetry. That's basically bottom topography, side scan sonar, underwater videos. We evaluated the route for, again, those hard complex bottoms and eelgrass, and confirmed that the route can avoid those SSUs, those resource areas. We filed our expanded environmental notification form back in June of 2011. We actually had a public hearing right here in Falmouth Town Hall on July 14th, and the certificate was issued at the end of July. They agree with our request for a single EIR, and they request that we continue to coordinate with the state ocean team on our marine data collection and analysis. We did that, and we defined a 600-foot wide survey corridor, shown here. And that was multi-beam bathymetry, much more detailed bathymetry, much more detailed side scan sonar multi-beam, sub-bottom profiling, and magnetometer survey. Multi-beam bathymetry, basically a computer takes the water depth data, processes it into a bathymetric map, and you get a 3D dimensional view of the bottom. And this shows us going over one of the ridges out there. I think this is Lamido Shoal, which is just off the Falmouth coastline. Side scan sonar basically sends a beam out at an angle, allows you to see features on the bottom, basically three-dimensional surfaces like existing cables. And you're actually looking both ways. This is to the left of the vessel, this is to the right of the vessel, and you can see sand waves down in the lower portion of this scan. It's also very useful for, obviously, archaeological analysis. If there was a vessel sticking up above the surface, you'd be able to see that. The sub-bottom profiles reveal the geology underneath the surface, and going over this particular area, this is on middle ground, this is off of the vineyard, we're able to see sand waves up to 15 feet in height. You can actually see and map their depth with the sub-bottom profiles. It's good for looking at the geological stratification, the presence of hard bottom if it's there, sand wave thickness, and also archaeological features that might be buried. Magnetometer survey, basically looking at metal objects. That was very useful for our marine archaeological resources, and we didn't find any substantive marine archaeological resources. We have a sign-off from Mass Historic Commission and the Bureau of Underwater Archaeological Resources at the state. We did sediment sampling and videos. It shows the 24 transects that we did for videos and 17 sampling locations all along here. Just kind of a summary of what we found. Here's our video unit. Shows eelgrass beds and red algae along the shallow shoreline. Sand ripples with no marine biota over some of those ridge areas. And then along a lot of the bottom, we found kind of a gravelly bottom, encrusting type of sponges on there. Sediment sampling, we did vibrocoring, shown up here in the upper left. Very, very compact sediments. We ended up bending a core barrel, so we did most of our sampling with a grab sampler. Found mostly good coarse sands, and then very well sorted gravels and scattered cobbles. We filed a single environmental impact report with MEPA back in April of last year. Certificate was issued in June, said we complied with MEPA. The Division of Marine Fisheries determined that we have no time of year restrictions because we're doing this long horizontal directional drill which extends out below the coastal resources. Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program at first found that a portion of the project over on the vineyard side was within habitat of piping plover and least terns. Subsequently, as we mapped out the dune resource and where the endangered species are located, they determined that we are not going to be in any of those resource areas because we're going to be horizontal directional drilling underneath those, so they've signed off on the project as well. We did a notice of project change when Comcast was joined by NSTAR to co-locate both fiber optic and electric cables within a single 5.5-inch diameter hybrid cable. And we filed that notice of project change in July of last year. And the certificate was issued at the end of August. And MEPA felt that the change does not require the preparation of a supplemental EIR because the installation methods and equipment remain largely unchanged, and the impact's largely unchanged. The hybrid cable looks like this. It's about 5.5 inches in diameter, as I mentioned. Here are the electric services, these 3 circles here, and then fibers shown here. And the rest is basically to protect these fibers and electric services. In terms of our engineering plans, this is a matrix of the plans going from the Cape over to the vineyard. Look at the first sheet in that plan. Is a plan view here and then a cross-section view here. Plan view showing the horizontal directional drill pit at your beach parking lot. Again, showing how we're going down 20 to 30 feet below the beach dune and near shore. Here's a schematic of what that directional drilling looks like. And first we'll be doing a pilot hole, and then doing a reaming out to enlarge that pilot hole, and then pulling through the HDPE or plastic pipe, which is the conduit that will be eventually used to put the cable in. This shows when we get to the end of the HDD, then we trench and bury the rest of the way at about 3 to 7 feet below the ocean bed, continuing out to the south. When we transition from horizontal directional drill to plowing, the divers will need to go down to lower the conduit down and bury that, and then the plowing and trenching takes place thereafter. This shows the trenching out over middle ground, out to the county boundary, or the boundary between Falmouth and Tisbury, which is about 13,500 feet, or about halfway across the vineyard right here. That's when Martha's Vineyard Commission and the town of Tisbury take over the permitting for the rest of it. Cable burial will be with a device down here, either a hydroplow or ROV, and we'll simultaneously lay and bury the cable. Be using perhaps barges with harbor master units, which are like big outboards on both sterns and bow of the vessel to keep it in place with the strong currents out there. Using a dynamic positioning system, basically a computer system that regulates the large HydroMaster units, keep you online. This shows two types of cable embedding, ROV here, which is like a chainsaw in through the coarser sediments, and then a hydroplow could be used with a stinger with injecting water into the sediments to fluidize them, allowing the cable to sink down into the trench. You've seen this figure before. I brought it up again to show that the only permanent ground level changes will be manhole covers, the two manhole covers associated with both NSTAR and Comcast services. Speaks to using directional drilling to avoid impacts to the nearshore resources. No new utility poles will be utilized. Again, we're going to be going up on an existing utility pole here. Drilling will take approximately 1 month, and the contractor, the construction will be conducted in accordance with the town of Falmouth regulations governing construction hours. We use drill mud. The purpose of the mud is to bring back the cuttings back to the HDD pit where they're filtered out. The muds also cool and lubricate the drill head, and they seal and maintain the stability of the hole. The composition of the mud, it's a bentonite, which is a natural clay, a montmorillonite clay, that expands greatly up to 15 times in volume when water is added. That's what gives it its lubricating and the ability to carry back those cuttings. There are some polymers added, which are basically chemical compounds that add to the viscosity and lubricity of the mud. Polymers are typically used in like ice cream starches and cellulose, xanthan, and guar gums. I mentioned to minimize impacts on the neighbors, we'll be doing the work in the off-season, so probably not too many neighbors around. Typically noise and light are the biggest concerns, and we'll be, in terms of noise sources, could be HDD equipment, generators, excavators, construction, similar to you'd see at any construction site. We'll have, again, working in the winter and fall when some residents are not present. We'll establish stringent noise requirements for the contractors, we'll monitor the noise levels to make sure they don't get above acceptable levels. Require mufflers on equipment, self-adjusting backup alarms, shields and enclosures around stationary equipment. In terms of light mitigation, stringent requirements to protect the neighbors from glare, including aiming lighting away from nearby homes, equipping lighting with shields or visors. Next, I'm going to let Holly take you through the regional policy plan.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Les. So as Mr. Putnam recited at the beginning of the meeting, the DRI review process for this project has been limited in scope to 2 issue areas, coastal resources and marine resources. So I'll be discussing the project consistency with the minimum performance standards associated with those 2 issue areas. And we'll start with coastal resources. Now, I'm going to try to go through these slides relatively quickly and not actually recite the standards as they're stated, but on each slide you'll see the standards at the top and then project consistency below. So the first goal under coastal resources has to do with maritime industry, character, and public access. And the first standard essentially is to protect public access to the shoreline. As Les mentioned, project construction will occur between October and April, avoiding the busiest recreational periods. And the subgrade cable will not interfere with public access or public trust rights whatsoever once it is installed. In addition, the project will have no significant visible impacts. Again, the only ground level change will be 2 new manhole covers. And again, there will be no new utility poles. There are also a number of inapplicable standards. They're listed here, 1.2 through 1.7, and they're inapplicable for fairly obvious reasons regarding their titles here. The second goal has to do with coastal hazard mitigation, and standard 2.1 essentially prohibits development in V zones, but there is an exception when there is no feasible alternative for water-dependent structures and uses. This landing site is within a VE zone. If you recall, Les showed you a map of that, and the project is a water-dependent infrastructure crossing facility. As such, it has no alternative to crossing Vineyard Sound. The mitigation measures less described will minimize impacts to coastal resources, and the project will receive all the required permits. We're going through those processes now. And the project design is itself resistant to coastal hazards once it is installed. Standard 2.2 is not applicable since the project does not involve new buildings or improvements to existing structures. Standard 2.3 essentially says that new development shall not impede the landward migration of resources. This project will have no effect on the landward migration of resources. Again, it is predominantly underground infrastructure installed via HDD under dune and beach. And the shoreline change analysis that Les showed you shows that the proposed infrastructure is sufficiently set back from the shoreline. Standard 2.4 has to do with damage prevention and flood minimization. The project will not alter existing site elevations. It will also have no impact on drainage or floodwaters, and it does not involve the placement of fill. Standard 2.5 is not applicable since the project is not proposed on barrier beach or on coastal dune. Again, the HDD will extend beneath coastal dune, as well as coastal beach. Standard 2.6 is not applicable since the project area does not contain coastal banks or the buffers to coastal bank. And standard 2.7 is not applicable since the project is not in response to a coastal disaster. It does not involve reconstruction. Standard 2.8 has to do with public infrastructure in land subject to coastal storm flowage. It prohibits no new non-water dependent public infrastructure unless there is no feasible alternative and there is an overriding public benefit. This project is water dependent. As I said before, it is an infrastructure crossing facility, and it has no alternative to crossing Vineyard Sound. It also has substantial public benefits and will not affect growth or development patterns. Standard 2.9 is not applicable since the project does not involve dredged material. Standard 2.10 says that certain projects can be permitted within land subject to coastal storm flowage. It includes the exception for underground utility crossings. This project is an underground infrastructure crossing facility, as I've stated, and it will occur on or under land subject to coastal storm flowage, but will not impact beach or dune resources. In addition, the DRI application did contain an environmental construction management plan that identifies best management practices to avoid and minimize adverse impacts during construction. Standard 2.11 is not applicable since it references beach nourishment. The third goal protects coastal water quality and habitat, and the first standard under this goal protects buffers to coastal wetlands. Essentially, it protects undisturbed buffer areas of 100 feet in accordance with a minimum performance standard that is in the wetlands issue area of the regional policy plan. And that standard does allow buffer zone disturbance for utility line installation when there is no feasible alternative to the proposed route. This project will not disturb any undisturbed buffer areas, and as I've stated, it is a water-dependent project. Standard 3.2 is not applicable, having to do with septic systems. Standard 3.3 prohibits direct untreated stormwater discharges into coastal waters. This project will not alter stormwater conditions, and there is an existing filtration swale that discharges to Salt Pond. This swale is located between the parking lot and the bordering wetlands. If you recall, we saw that on the site visit. And again, construction period best management practices were identified in the construction management plan that is provided with the application. Those are also shown on the engineering plan. There are a number of inapplicable standards, 3.4 through 3.9. Again, they're inapplicable for fairly obvious reasons. Standard 3.10 protects eelgrass. Due to the use of the horizontal directional drilling in this project, there will be no impacts to eelgrass beds. Standard 3.11 protects fish, shellfish, and crustaceans. The impacts, as less described from this cable embedding operation, will be along a narrow 5-foot path, essentially two 2-foot wide treads for the cable embedding vehicle and then a 1-foot wide disturbance for the laying of the cable. This temporary impact will not affect benthic habitat that is unique from immediately adjacent habitat, and for that reason it is expected that the temporary disturbance area will be recolonized very quickly. It will recover This cable embedding operation will also proceed at a slow enough rate that mobile organisms such as fish will be able to avoid the operation. The project area does include areas deemed as suitable shellfish habitat for bay scallop and also contains approved designated shellfish growing areas. However, this project will not permanently change bathymetry, water circulation, or water quality. So there will be no permanent detriment to those habitats. Also, as Les stated, the Division of Marine Fisheries determined that no time of year restrictions are necessary for the project due to the mitigation measures and the installation techniques being used. There are a couple of inapplicable standards here. And moving into marine resources. The first goal has to do with offshore sand mining and conduits, and there are a couple of inapplicable standards, one pertaining to sand mining, and the other one is not applicable since the project is not located in mapped cable or pipeline prohibited areas. Standard 1.3 protects navigation buffers. The project route will not cross navigational channels, nor will it cross commercial shipping lanes. However, it will cross established ferry routes between Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, so the proponent will coordinate with the U.S. Coast Guard as well as the Steamship Authority prior to initiating the installation. Standard 1.5 requires an operations and maintenance plan. As I said before, there is a construction management plan that was included with the application, and that plan does contain procedures for installation and maintenance. And NSTAR and Comcast as joint proponents assume responsibility for the project. Standard 1.5 requires an emergency response plan. The environmental construction management plan included with the application does include spill avoidance protocols, both for landside and marine operations. In addition, an environmental field supervisor will monitor compliance with the permits and mitigation requirements. That supervisor will have stop work authority. And the proponent will contract with an environmental remediation service contractor for emergency response, both landside and marine again. Standard 1.6 protects the North Atlantic right whale. The project is not located in North Atlantic right whale critical habitat. Nonetheless, the proponent is willing to commit to having trained observers on board to monitor for marine mammals as well as sea turtles, which we will get to. And will comply with all notification requirements and stop work requirements as well. Standard 1.7 has to do with time of year restrictions for the right whale. It is not applicable since the project is not located in exclusionary areas. Standard 1.8 essentially requires that the contractors are familiar with the guidelines and requirements regarding whales. The proponent will comply with these requirements. Standard 1.9 protects sea turtles. Again, the Division of Marine Fisheries has determined that no time of year restrictions are necessary. And due to the October to April construction time period for this project, sea turtles are highly unlikely to be present. Nonetheless, lights on the vessels will be directed towards the deck, and they will be shielded to minimize the illumination of the surrounding water, just to minimize the attraction of any marine life. Standard 1.10 regards fish resources and habitat. The project is not within exclusionary or provisional areas. Again, no time of year restrictions. And the temporary impact to benthic habitat will be along a narrow 5-foot wide path. And the project route will not cross through any unique habitat. As Les touched upon, the Massachusetts Ocean Management Plan identifies special, sensitive, and unique resource areas. Those include hard and complex bottom, and this route will avoid those SSU resources. The route will also avoid licensed commercial fishing or aquaculture installations. Standard 1.11 pertains to direct impacts to benthic habitat. As Les described, the proposed route is the product of very detailed marine surveys, and the results of those surveys were thoroughly vetted with the Massachusetts Ocean team, as well as through the MEPA review process. And the route will avoid, again, SSU resources, as well as eelgrass beds. Standard 1.12 pertains to indirect impacts to benthic resources. I'll not repeat myself here, you can all read the first bullet for yourselves. And of course the HDD will avoid any impacts to eelgrass beds or turbidity generation near those eelgrass beds. Also, the grain size results from the marine surveys did document that the grain size along the entire route is very coarse, predominantly coarse sands and gravels, as well as sporadic cobbles and boulders. So no significant turbidity or sedimentation is anticipated. Standard 1.13 has to do with time of year restrictions. Once again, none were identified by DMF. HDD will avoid any nearshore marine impacts, and the route avoids SSU areas. Standard 1.14 requires monitoring of benthic habitat during construction. Due to the coarse-grained nature of the sediments, we would contend that that monitoring is not necessary since turbidity and sedimentation are not expected. And of course, the use of HDD will avoid impacts to eelgrass. Standard 1.15 protects rare species habitat. The Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program did issue a letter in January of this year stating that the project will not adversely affect the actual resource area habitat of state-protected rare wildlife species. And in addition, the project will not result in a prohibited take of state-listed species. Standard 1.16 deals with construction noise in order to protect marine mammals, so in-water construction noise. There's a very low likelihood that marine mammals or sea turtles will be present due to the construction window between October 15th and April. Nonetheless, as I stated earlier, the proponent is willing to commit to having trained observers on board to monitor both for marine mammals and sea turtles. That observer will have stop work authority. Standard 1.17 deals with cumulative impacts and asks the Commission to determine whether the public benefits of a project outweigh the cumulative adverse impacts. In September of 2012, the Secretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs did issue a public benefit determination, and we would contend that the public benefits significantly outweigh the temporary project impacts. Primarily, the benefits are in the form of expanded capacity of electrical service and the redundancy of communications services, and the impacts will be temporary as well as spatially and temporally constrained. Standard 1.18 encourages coordinated conduit crossings, essentially the co-location of utilities. That is exactly what this project involves, the co-location of electric and communications cables bundled into a hybrid cable. The project route, in addition, is in the general vicinity of existing cables. Les showed you a couple maps that showed the existing cables. But notably, it has different landing points, and that is intentional in order to provide route diversity. Standard 1.19 protects archaeological resources. The detailed marine surveys conducted in September of 2011 included magnetometer surveys in order to evaluate for the presence of archaeological resources. The report was submitted to both the Massachusetts Underwater Board of Archaeological Resources as well as the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and their determination was that no historic properties or archaeological resources would be affected. There are a number of inapplicable standards that pertain to sand mining. Standard 1.27 protects benthic communities. Again, the use of HDD will avoid eelgrass, the route will avoid SSU resources, and the survey results show that the sediments are coarse-grained, so turbidity and sedimentation are not expected to be issues. Standard 1.28 protects coastal water birds, but it is not applicable since the project does not occur within core bird habitats that are identified in this standard. That's all set for us. Thank you.
Andrew, before we go back and I put the screen up, I'd like to ask you to bring up the slide where you show the cables that are existing and the new one going in.
It's right at the beginning,
Yeah,
I
right
guess.
at the beginning, yeah. Yeah, right on there.
Okay, I believe it's cable, it's 97? Right.
99?
Is it 90, no, okay, 97 looks to me like it's a straight shot. And that's the one that's hasn't had any breakdown, so to speak. Am I correct?
Let me just flip to that one.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
At 97?
That's correct.
Yes, 97.
Okay. 99 could there be possible reasons because of stress in those turns why that cable was a problem?
Not likely. My name's Henry Oheim, I'm from NSTAR.
Thank you.
The pictorial you're looking at is not how it's actually built. It's a picture.
No, I understand because your grades change. and
Well,
you-
typically, first of all, these cables, all the cables that are installed right now were actually installed in sections. Okay, and this was because the cables were manufactured in the United States and they had to be shipped by truck and they have to get under bridges and things like that. So we could not, the company could not have one continuous cable going from one place to the other. We had to divide it in sections, and then those sections are spliced together on a barge and dropped into the water. In case you have a cable failure, since these cables were literally laid on the ocean bottom, they follow kind of a curvature, almost like an S-type curve, so that if you do have to replace a section, you can lift it up out of the water. If it were just a straight line, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay.
So what you see here is really just kind of a pictorial of what it would look like. It's really kind of follows kind of a curved pattern deliberately,
Yeah,
because it does lay on the bottom. The new cable that we're proposing is going to be trenched in, as Les said. This is very similar to the cable National Grid put in to Nantucket, with two cables in exactly this way, much longer, but still trenched in the same way. This is a continuous length cable. It's actually made overseas
okay.
and is literally 5 miles of continuous cable. And
So-
no splices in the water.
So 97 is a spliced-in cable too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Like I say, that cable was installed in 1990. The oldest cable that was in there was the 91 cable. That's the one that has failed 5 times. The 75 cable was actually installed in 1995, and that had a manufacturing defect when it was installed. And because of that, it was derated to about 1/3 of its rated capacity. So when it failed, that's why it wasn't really repaired, because you wouldn't get that much out of it. You only get a few megawatts of energy to transmit from one side of the ocean to the other. So as a result, we're looking to replace that cable.
So
It's
there's
just
a
not
tremendous advance in the technology installation in the cable itself.
in the manufacturing of the cable and the installation both, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, just had that question because it gave me a little bit of concern. I thought that maybe it was some stress on the way it's drawn on the cables and that reason for failure, but thank you for your explanation.
Yeah, in the case of the Nantucket cables, which again were installed like we're proposing, they haven't had any problems with failure. There's 2 of them over there, much longer route too.
They've been in service for almost 10, 15 years now.
Yeah.
They're sheathed also. They have a sheath around them, or a tube around them.
They have a horizontal directional drill for the shoreline. So that section is sheathed.
The cable has an armoring around it though. It has an
Yeah.
outside armor jacket,
Yeah.
and then that's enclosed in a ethylene propylene rubber jacket that's smooth.
What if there is a failure? How do you retrieve this cable so that you can repair it?
There's technology out there. If it's an electric failure, which I assume would be the most likely cause, there's technology out there now where you can actually locate the approximate position of it, and then they put what's called a thumping signal on it to actually determine the exact location, and then it would have to be literally excavated up and pulled up to the surface and fixed with a new length of cable, and then that would have to be retrenched in. Like I said, we don't expect failure.
Yeah, you don't anticipate that, I can understand with this.
It's not to say it can't
System.
happen, but it's.
Murphy's got a law that says that things like that do happen.
This is a cross-section, again, of the cable showing the protection
Yeah.
around the, both electric, protection around each of the electrics, and the fibers here. It's protected by the sheath around the outside, and the polycarbonate around the outside of it.
And the 3 cables are because of the 3-phase.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, those are copper cables, and then the 2 smaller circles are the
Fiber.
Fiber cable.
Okay. Andrea, do you
Yep.
need us to stay here, or can you?
Yep, you can stay right there, and if you can shut yours off,
Sure,
Les,
yep.
I'll bring mine up. Thank you very much. For the record, my name's Andrea Adams. I'm the Cape Cod Commission Senior Regulatory Planner, and I know that probably everybody here is either connected to the project, possibly, or to the Cape Cod Commission staff or members. But I just note, for the benefit of the listening audience on the tape, we are also being videotaped by
Falmouth Community Television?
Falmouth Community Television. So my presentation is very short. And which button did you use, Les, for advancing the slides?
Sorry.
Thank you. Whoa. Modern technology, don't you love it? My presentation will go over the project description very briefly, the Commission's jurisdiction, standards of review, and Commission staff's analysis of the project and recommendations. This is a basically verbal synopsis of Les Smith's and Holly Carson's presentation. It's co-applicants are Comcast and Enstar. The new submarine cable is fiber optic and electric. It's going from Falmouth to Martha's Vineyard. You've all seen the landing site. Today we had a site visit for Mr. Harris and Mr. McCormick, and it was much more pleasant than when the rest of you did the site visit, when we were practically freezing to death. There's a lot of discussion of use of horizontal directional drill, or HDD. You can see on the slides how long the conduit is going to be, and it's approximately 4.5 miles. And the main run is through ship or barge. And I would note that at least in the original staff report, we had some changes. Les was also kind enough to provide a few corrections to the staff report that was distributed in your packets, but the corrections were really minor. Things like making sure that we had the right applicants, and noting that the conduit might be HDPE or steel, so things like that. In terms of the Commission's jurisdiction, why we're here, the hybrid cable qualifies as a DRI, or Development of Regional Impact, under Section 2D(i) of the Commission's enabling regulations. You can see to my right and behind me the quote. And it's primarily because the project was required to go through the MEPA process and produce an EIR. As Les mentioned in his presentation, a Cape Cod Commission subcommittee previously scoped the Development of Regional Impact Review and limited it to just coastal and marine resources. And the scoping decision for that, or for this project, also includes conditions for sediment controls during construction. In terms of the standards of review, the section that controls is Section 7C8 of the enabling regulations. It has criteria for approval, which is consistency with the Commission Act, the Regional Policy Plan, and minimum performance standards, districts of critical planning concern, municipal development bylaws, Commission certified local comprehensive plans, and there's a last criterion which is more subjective, which is whether or not the probable benefit of the project is greater than the probable detriment. And one of the ways the Commission members can tell or use to see if the project does have benefits is to look at what's called the best development practices. Those are shoulds and mays, as opposed to the minimum performance standards, which say shall. In terms of staff analysis, it's going to be limited to just the applicable issue areas, which are coastal, And marine resources. First, the project does involve site disturbance within 100 feet of a coastal wetland. However, you've got the horizontal directional drill where the cables lay beneath these resources and under the eelgrass beds, as Les and Holly indicated. The horizontal directional drill avoids any time of year restrictions to protect the fisheries per the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries, or Mass DMF. Les talked a lot about what bentonite clay is. The good part about that is it's relatively benign, and the project also includes construction best management practices to contain these drilling fluids. And more importantly, refueling of equipment will not be done within 100 feet of marked wetlands. And the co-applicants have emergency response plans to deal with spills both on the land side and in the water. In terms of coastal resources, minimum performance standard 1, again, as Holly mentioned, the construction period avoids the busiest recreational periods when fewer people are likely to be there. The scrub grade cable doesn't interfere with public access. The emergency response plan in the application adequately addresses the minimum performance standards under Goal Coastal Resources 2. And as Holly mentioned, Coastal Resources Minimum Performance Standard allows for utility installations in coastal resource areas and buffer zones where there's no feasible alternative and no disturbance of protected resources. There isn't, because this is the only way to get the cable over to Martha's Vineyard, and the eelgrass survey and the other surveys indicate that the construction methods they're using only cause temporary impacts, there's no time of year restrictions, and the other ways they're doing it minimize or avoid impacts to fish, shellfish, and crustaceans. In terms of marine resources, as Holly mentioned, it occurs within the jurisdictional area of the Cape Cod Ocean Management Plan, which was created by the Cape Cod Commission, and the Massachusetts Ocean Management Plan, which is more global and statewide. And it occurs within the planning area of resources identified as special, sensitive, and unique, that lovely acronym again, SSU, and high human use activity areas. In terms of the minimum performance standards, the first one deals with cables providing, or installation of cables, the method they're using providing buffers to navigation, and the cable location is not going to interfere with that. As Holly mentioned, they're going to coordinate with the Coast Guard and with the Steamship Authority. The cable installation is going to occur between October of this year and April of next year if everything goes well. In terms of minimum performance standard of marine resources 1.4, it asks that applicants provide an operations and maintenance plan. There is one in Appendix E of the DRI application. The MPS also requires applicants to ensure the plan addresses 3 key activities and responsibilities, which are that the activity is maintained so as not to constitute a significant threat to public health and safety and the environment. They have adequate capital or insurance to make necessary repairs, including on account of accidents or collisions or natural disasters, and that all performance standards set forth herein, meaning time of year restrictions, are respected. In terms of minimum performance standard 1.4, the Commission staff suggests the co-applicants be required to comply with this minimum performance standard as a condition of approval. In terms of minimum performance standard marine resources 1.5, they have an environmental remediation contractor that will be coming on site, and then they have the field monitor who will have stop work authority. In terms of minimum performance standard 1.6, Holly addressed this in her presentation. Installation has to cease if North Atlantic right whales are observed within 2 miles. The Commission staff suggests that the applicant clarify that the environmental field monitor shall be responsible, trained, and have the authority should marine mammals be observed. Holly essentially addressed that in her presentation, but just wanted to bring that out because it's very important, since right whales and turtles are protected species. In terms of minimum performance standard, Marine Resources 1.8, it's subject to the, believe it or not, NOAA, which is the weather people, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration viewing guidelines. And as Holly mentioned, that's, you're trained to look for these protected animals in a certain way so that you can see them and then say, whoa, we have to stop because we're in danger of you know, getting too close to them. That's what viewing guidelines means, that you can actually be trained to see them and look for sign. And as Holly mentioned, the applicant will have the field monitor on board and will comply with the viewing guidelines. Marine Resources 1.9 talks about sea turtles, and there was consultation with the Department of Marine Fisheries, Massachusetts. There's no time of year restriction required, but as Holly mentioned, they're still going to have the monitors on board the ship to make sure that they don't interfere with sea turtles, and to put the lights on the ship toward the deck as opposed to in the water, which would be an attraction. In terms of Marine Resources 10, protect fish habitat. The hydroplow has temporary impacts, but they will be minimized. They're using the HDD, and no time of year restrictions were deemed necessary. In terms of Marine Water Resources 11 and Marine Water Resources 112, they're not impacting eelgrass or complex bottom, as Les described with all of the surveying they did and the various different machines. Specifically, the HDD technique avoids the eelgrass, and the cable route through the magnetometer, the grab samples, the side scan sonar, and everything else they used avoids the complex bottom. In terms of Marine Resources 113, they consulted with the Department of Marine Fisheries again, and again, no time of year restrictions. In terms of Marine Water Resources 114, they need to monitor during benthic construction, and Commission staff suggests the co-applicants provide a site monitoring plan for hydroplow work. That was something that the applicant suggested wasn't necessary because the bottom was relatively coarse in nature, but Commission staff still suggests that a monitoring plan is warranted, particularly because the hydroplow work occurs within 100 feet of eelgrass beds on the Falmouth side of the cable installation. In terms of minimum performance standard, Marine Resources 115, which requires no adverse impacts to endangered species. The area is mapped for terns and plovers, but Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program issued a no-take in January of this year. In terms of Marine Resources 117, there's a need for public benefit, and the Commission should deliberate or determine whether the public benefit of the project outweighs the cumulative adverse impacts to protected resources. And the applicant has provided you with some testimony that you may want to take under advisement about that, the nature of the public benefit and whether it does outweigh the adverse impacts. In terms of Marine Resources Minimum Performance Standard 118, coordinate crossings, as Holly noted, the route is in an area of existing cables and bundles two into one. In terms of Marine Resources Minimum Performance Standard 119 on archaeological resources, they did surveys in September, and even though they didn't find anything, they're going to continue to work with the Marine Board of Underwater Archaeological Resources if they do. In terms of minimum performance standard Marine Resources 127, avoid impacts to benthic communities. Again, they did some surveying in September, but Commission staff suggests the applicant should address the need for monitoring as previously discussed relative to MPS Marine Resources 114. In terms, so I've just covered consistency with the Act and the Regional Policy Plan, and on one of my earlier slides I said there are a few other criteria of approval. These include whether the probable benefit of the project is greater than the probable detriment. As I noted, the subcommittee at its discretion may consider best development practices that exceed the minimum performance standards in its analysis of benefits and detriments. And there's been a lot of acronyms floating around. no pun intended, BDPs, best development practices, occur in the regional policy plan. They are different than like construction BMPs, which are things that you use during construction like hay bales. So when I say best development practices, I'm specifically talking about things that are incorporated into the regional policy plan. Commission staff have identified 2 best development practices that the project may meet. These include in the land use section, and even though land use was not part of the scope, there was some consideration of this by the subcommittee during the scoping process. It talks about co-location of public infrastructure being a best development practice and being encouraged. Again, BDPs are a should, not a shall. They're good things to do. So the subcommittee may want to consider that, even though a land use has not specifically been included in the scope. And in terms of one of the areas that is included in the scope, marine resources, the project meets best development practice 1.29, which includes consideration of multi-hazard plans. The subcommittee can also consider other factors it deems constitute probable benefits in its own deliberations. It's not limited to just using best development practices as a guide. Another criteria of approval is consistency with Commission certified local comprehensive plans and municipal development bylaws. Falmouth has a Commission certified local comprehensive plan as of 1998, and we're still seeking input from Brian Curry, the Falmouth town planner and DRI liaison, about consistency on this matter. Another criteria is consistency with any DCPCs or districts of critical planning concern. There are DCPCs in Falmouth, including one in, I think it's Black Beach or Back Beach. However, in terms of this particular project, in an email dated April 3rd of this year from Brian Curry, the town planner, the landfall site is not located in a DCPC. In terms of conclusions and staff recommendations, Commission staff recommends the subcommittee seek clarification on some issues connected to the scoped issue areas and coastal marine resources. They're listed on the screen, talking about modifying plans, provide construction plan for the hydroplow work, confirm the responsibilities of the environmental field monitor, include the Commission in the list of agencies that a certificate of compliance shall be obtained following construction, submit a final environmental monitoring plan, and condition the project to require a sedimentation control plan before construction starts, which for the Commission would be prior to issuance of a preliminary certificate. In terms of other things that are not directly within the purview of the applicant, Commission staff are still seeking clarification from the town planner on consistency with Commission certified local comprehensive plan and municipal bylaws. We've reached out to him a couple of times, but he has not responded, but we'll continue to do that. And based on that, because we don't have complete clarification and any input from the town planner would be new information, Commission staff recommends the subcommittee move to continue the hearing to a date, time, and place certain so that you could receive any additional testimony, including from the town. And that concludes Commission staff's presentation.
Just would you move back?
Do you want me to put yours in the trash bucket?
Sure.
Any reason you'd like to take a break or continue?
Let's continue.
This is champagne.
Okay, at this point, subcommittee, do you have any further questions of the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I don't have any question of real substance, but there's one, Holly, your presentation, I noticed that you said that in your presentation, you were taking responsibility for certain things. And my question is there also a matter of accountability? Because you can always stand up and say, well, we're responsible. But your participation in this whole process, the organizations that are responsible, are they in fact going to take action to correct these things that they in fact are responsible for? Or do we have to follow up things? And I can go back to you can go back to your presentation. It's just that I know, I mean, the commission issues the authority to go off and do these things because you comply with the act. And there's also a responsibility which goes with the commission and also the applicant. But there's an accountability which the commission can't be accountable for. What it expects is that the applicants are accountable for whatever goes wrong. I mean, there are various things in there that if in fact the plow comes out of the ground and suddenly it creates an issue someplace, you can always say, well, we're responsible, but who's in fact who's being accountable for all of this? This is really the question. And you don't have to answer the question if you think it's going to make you commit to something. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're going to do when you say that you're responsible versus being accountable.
I'll try to answer that. I think the best way to answer it, I mean, Comcast and NSTAR are the owners of this project. Okay, it's our project. And you know, as a joint venture, we're accountable for its success. So if something goes wrong, we're accountable to fix it.
Here?
Okay. Well,
It's that
that's
simple. I mean, now
Yeah.
we'll hire professional contractors to do the work, and ultimately they'll be the ones that do the fixing. But I mean, when you get down to who is accountable to us, the owners.
yeah. Who's going to put it right? Then it's going to be in fact. That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to invite any federal folks that are here. They would like to say anything? Is it this time going to public testimony? Any state officials? Any local officials? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to say anything? Seeing none? Applicant, do you have any final comments or responses?
I think we'll cover it. We'll certainly take under advisement the staff report, and there's several bullets that we'll probably contact Andrew about just to understand exactly what is desired, but they seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a normal procedure, so that's good. And how about you, Andrea? Any other staff members here?
Yes, in the back in the green is Kerry Driscoll, one of our regulatory officers.
Hey, Gary.
All I would say is, for the record, a copy of the hearing notice and the staff report were provided to the town planner and the representative of the Falmouth Conservation Commission, being the referring body that sent the project over as a DRI. So they knew when the hearing was, and they knew they could get in touch with us if they had any comments on the staff report. So the only thing that I would have, as I said at the very end of my presentation, is this is a public hearing. So if you could take out your
Andrea, just
timers.
one quick question for you.
Mhm.
So, let me get this straight. If the Falmouth town planner does not respond, then he must like what we're doing?
That would seem to be the case, yes. I mean,
Do these folks have to go to him now? Or?
well, I think we can work with the town to seek clarification on those issues. I think what you could do first, as I said, is to try and find another date where you could continue the hearing. And then if you feel comfortable, based on what you've heard, I mean, some of you have heard it sort of twice now because you were part of the limited scoping, and John and Jack are replacing a couple of members that were lost due to attrition. If you're comfortable with the project, given that you don't have, a room full of people with questions, you could move to direct staff to draft the skeleton of a decision for your review at the next hearing.
Yeah, well,
And in the meantime, we'll work with the town to get their feedback.
I mean, I think that's where I'm going. We've had some pretty detailed, informative hearings at this point.
Yep.
I think, I hope my fellow commissioners have got a good idea of what this project consists of. So I don't know whether I'd like to take a lot more time on it.
I can completely concur. The only reason I recommend that you continue the hearing is so that if you do get comments from the town planner, the record is still open so that you can receive them.
Okay.
Because a subcommittee really isn't designed for testimony, so if he wants to show up, or if we get a letter, then we've sort of done our due diligence in letting the public have one more bite at the apple.
Could we do that just before the commission meeting when the substances go before the full commission?
Well, what you need to do is, in addition to getting those last few things that was on the bullet slide at the end of my presentation sort of resolved, and we're going to work with Les on some of them, you also need to deliberate on a draft decision. So we really do need at least one more grouping of you folks to give us the okey-dokey.
Yeah.
Well, you could also do it at the hearing.
Hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with that. Let's check the calendars.
Anybody got your calendars out?
Yep.
So, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you are considering having it prior, right at the same time as the hearing?
No,
No.
no, we're not, but
Have another meeting.
we'll have another meeting and,
Well,
We
we'll,
so-
what I'm recommending is that the subcommittee continue this hearing to another date, time, and place certain. And then at that hearing, if everything goes well, then probably recommend it to the full commission.
so, I know you understand it's another meeting.
I understand.
Hearing.
Yeah, we were hoping to avoid another meeting if possible.
Well, you would have,
They
We
have-
were also.
yeah, believe me.
Understood.
Okay.
Just for the record, even if everything was perfect, I mean, completely perfect, and the town had commented and there were no issues, I'd have to have another meeting or hearing anyway because they have to approve a draft written decision. They can't do that in a vacuum. It
Understood.
can't be just through the chair.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Best to keep the record open for that time period.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm sure that, we can resolve with a final meeting, and go right into, and then pick a date for you for commission.
Okay, what date are we recommending?
What do you got cooking?
When do you want to bring this to the commission?
Well, the commission meeting, I think, on the 9th is not happening. The reason being is that's the day that we have another project at night. So the next commission meeting after that would be the 23rd of May.
And really, these folks in a few weeks.
Lord.
There's nothing I can do about that. If I could, I would. The 9th is the Lowe's hearing.
Are we still recommending that we have a further subcommittee meeting in conjunction with the regular meeting?
Well, we certainly have plenty of time to do it.
Well, if you do it the day before the commission meeting, you can, but that means that the commission meeting is going to get the draft decision that day. What I would recommend is that you have, continue the hearing to,
A week before?
a week, no, like if today is the 25th, continue it to the 2nd, and then send it forward to the 23rd. So,
Okay.
because the mailing for the 23rd will go out on the 16th. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
I
So
would-
I'd recommend that you guys do your business relatively quickly, and then we'll get it on the next available commission
I
meeting.
can't do it on the 2nd because at 4 o'clock I have a meeting in Orleans.
Right, I'm just suggesting that
Yeah,
as a
okay.
date.
I'm just putting out that I don't want to be there on the 2nd.
Okay, let's say, what about the 1st?
First,
It's a Wednesday.
Yep.
6th? 1st, 6th?
The 1st is okay with me.
6 works on the 1st.
what
Six
day is
works.
the first? Is that
1st is on
That's
a
on
Wednesday, the
Wednesday.
6th is on a Monday.
either one?
Wait a minute, what, 6th? Oh, I can't do the 6th.
You
I
can't do
think-
6, okay?
No, I can't.
I think we're gonna need a little bit more time if you want us to provide it to Andrea, then she has to develop the report.
You want a little more
afterwards.
time?
Yes, please.
Okay, then we'll move it up to the following week,
That'd be good.
probably the 13th.
I won't be able to do the 13th.
I can't do the 13th either.
14th?
Town meeting that day,
Oh, no,
14th.
14th.
I can do 14th.
I'm open on the 14th.
It's pretty good. How you guys looking?
Okay, 14th.
What day is it on?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, let's book it,
14th.
What time?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, well, that's because of me. Right? You want, we'll make it 3.
Great.
Yeah, 3,
Okay.
3 good?
What day?
Yeah.
The 14th, it's a
14th.
Tuesday.
Let me look at this room at the shop, at the commission.
Yeah.
I'm doing that now, courtesy of wonderful technology. I got the password wrong, so I have to backspace on this tiny little screen. So,
Okay, that's it for this thing, well, battery went dead.
almost, oops.
That's technology, Henry. This doesn't go dead. You can break the point, but
Yeah, but I like this.
Carrie, can you log in? I've been blocked because my password to the VLAN group. See if we have anything cooking on the 14th at the commission.
and that was gonna be 3 o'clock.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Carrie.
3 looks good. Everybody seems to be okay with that.
Thank you for your indulgence. All of this modern technology made possible by free Wi-Fi from Town of Falmouth. What time were we thinking of?
3 p.m.?
On
3
the
o'clock.
14th?
Right.
Do we have anything? Not in the big conference room. I'll tell you what, we got a 4 o'clock in the big conference room.
It's not gonna take an hour.
Can you do 4 o'clock?
Oh, what?
The conference room is booked until 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Can you do 4, can everybody do 4 o'clock on the
Yeah.
14th?
Unless you wanna do 2?
It's booked from 10:30 to 4 o'clock.
Okay, 4 o'clock.
4.
4, we're good.
Okay, we're in, huh?
Yep, and I need a motion to that effect. Continue
So
the
moved.
hearing.
Second.
Have a second, okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? You got 4 o'clock.
We adjourn?
I
Would you
won't.
like to direct staff to draft a written decision for your review?
I
So
would,
moved.
I would like to ask for a motion for that.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
anybody? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Stay? Yes, we would.
Now you may adjourn.
I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion second. All those in favor of adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Should we,
Anybody opposed?
should we state that,
John don't wanna go home. Yeah,
should we state that it's being closed until the next meeting, the date, the time, and so on?
Yes, I will state that for the record, for the benefit of the viewing audience. What the subcommittee just did is they continued this hearing to the Cape Cod Commission offices on April, excuse me,
14th,
May
May 14th.
2013, which is a Tuesday, at 4 o'clock at the Cape Cod Commission offices, which is 3225 Main Street in Barnstable, Mass. Then they also moved to direct commission staff to draft a written decision for their review at that continued public hearing. And they just moved to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Oh, we did that.
All right.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
All right.
That's repeating ourselves.
Just want to make sure, you know.
Mr. Chairman, one more time.